Thanks, councillors. It may not feel like it, but we're starting a new meeting. Almighty God, we the representatives of the citizens of the City of Brisbane are assembled here to strive and care for the welfare of our city and all its people. Lord, we ask that you guide us in the decisions we make here this evening. Amen. Brisbane City Council acknowledges this country and its traditional custodians. We acknowledge and respect the spiritual relationship between traditional custodians and this country, which has inspired language, songs, dances, law and dreaming stories over many thousands of years. We pay our respects to the elders, those who have passed into the dreaming, those here today, those of tomorrow. May we continue to peacefully walk together in gratitude, respect and kindness in caring for this country and one another. Please be seated. I declare the meeting open. Are there any apologies? No apologies. Councillors, I draw to your attention the notice of motion at item 2 on today's agenda. Lord Mayor.
Mr Chair, I move that the Council resolves to, number 1, approve the appointment of Claire Jenkinson as Councillor for Paddington Ward and their membership of Council standing committees as set out in attachment A. Number 2, revoke the infrastructure charges debt management policy adopted on the 23rd of June 2022 by Council Resolution 726/2021-2022 and adopt the investment policy at attachment B for the 2023-2024 financial year. Adopt the debt policy at attachment C for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the pensioners' partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment D for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the not-for-profit organisations' partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment E for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the payment of overdue rates and charges policy at attachment F for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the not-for-profit kindergartens partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment G for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the infrastructure charges debt management policy at attachment H for the 2023-24 financial year. Adopt the Brisbane infrastructure charges resolution number 1223 at attachment I with effect on and from the 3rd of July 2023. Adopt AP 286 build-to-rent incentive policy at attachment J with effect from the 1st of July 2023 and adopt a not-for-profit affordable housing providers partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment K for the 2023-24 financial year. Also to amend the AP 258 Brisbane Green Buildings Incentive Policy adopted on the 8th of September 2020 by Council Resolution 71-2020-21 as set out in the attachment L with retrospective effect to 1st of July 2022. Also to approve the amendment to administrative arrangements as set out in attachment M, approve the appointment of a Chair of Council and Deputy Chair of Council as set out in attachment N, approve the Victoria Park Barambin Master Plan, Land Management Plan and Local Government Infrastructure Designation as set out in attachment O, and approve the Stores Board submission, excuse me, amendment to the significant contracting plans for Brisbane Metro as set out in attachment P, and delegate certain powers of council specified in column 1 of the table of delegation of powers to the delegates listed in column 2, subject to any limits or special conditions listed in column 3, and on the general conditions of delegation as set out in attachment Q.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that Council resolves to 1. Approve the appointment of Claire Jenkinson as the Councillor for Paddington Ward and the membership of Council's standing committees as set out in attachment A. 2. Revoke the infrastructure charges debt management policy adopted on 23 June 2022 by Council Resolution 762/2021-22. Adopt A to J these measures. A, investment policy at attachment B for the 2023-24 financial year. Debt policy at attachment C for the 2023-24 financial year. C, pensioners partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment D for the 2023-24 financial year. D, not-for-profit organisations partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment E for the 2023-24 financial year. E, payment of overdue rates and charges policy at attachment F for the 2023-24 financial year. F, not-for-profit kindergartens partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment G for the 2023-24 financial year. G, infrastructure charges debt management policy at attachment H for the 2023-24 financial year. H, Brisbane Infrastructure Charges Resolution number 12, 2023 at attachment I with effect on and from 3 July 2023. I, AP 286 Brisbane Build to Rent Incentive Policy at attachment J with effect on and from 1 July 2023. J, not-for-profit affordable housing providers partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment K for the 2023-24 financial year. 4, amend the AP 258 Brisbane Green Building Incentive Policy adopted on 8 September 2020 by Council Resolution 171/2020-21 as set out in attachment L with retrospective effect to 1 July 2022. 5, approve the amendment to administrative arrangements as set out in attachment M. 6, approve the appointment of Chair of Council and Deputy Chair of Council as set out in attachment N. 7, approve the Victoria Park Barambin Master Plan, Land Management Plan and Local Government Infrastructure designation as set out in attachment O. 8, approve the Stores Board submission amendment to the significant contracting plans for Brisbane Metro as set out in attachment P. And 9, delegate certain powers of council specified in column 1 of the table of delegations of power to the delegates listed in column 2, subject to any limits or special conditions listed in column 3 and on the general conditions of delegations as set out in attachment Q. Is there any debate? Lord Mayor.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, I have a number of procedural issues that I would like to raise, and I apologise they may be a little complex, but I'd like to take some matters seriatim for debate and voting purposes, and I also have a question. So, Mr Chair, firstly...
Seriatim for debate and voting?
Yes. And as I said, they're a little bit complex, but I'm going to run through it this way. If you need clarification, please ask. For debate and voting purposes, I'm going to group these in Group A, B and C. So in Group A, could I ask that item number 1, item number 5, item number 6...
Hang on. Item 1.
5.
6.
6 and 9 are grouped together for debate purposes.
Yep.
And within that item 1...
Just for debate?
Yes, and within that, item 1 is separated for voting purposes.
Okay.
In Group B, items 4, 7 and 8 for debate purposes.
Yep.
And for voting purposes, separate item 4 for voting and items 7 and 8 together for voting.
Okay.
And in Group C, items 2 and 3.
For debate and voting?
Yes, and if we can separate those for voting, that would be great.
For debate and then voting separately?
Correct. So 3 groups for debate, and then there may be others that need to separate things.
Okay.
And I have a question for the Lord Mayor. I'm seeking information regarding item 4, which is the AP 258, the Brisbane Green Building Incentive Policy. The policy presented before us today is retrospective. It talks about eligible development applications dating back from 1 July 2020. So could the Lord Mayor please outline how many of these rebate or incentives have been approved and what is the total dollar value?
Okay. Lord Mayor? Hang on. So we're starting, unless there are other, if there's movement of seriatim on any other issues?
Yeah, point of order.
Point of order to you, Lord Mayor.
Wanted to make sure that item A was taken seriatim for debate and voting purposes up front.
Item 1 is taken
so
for debate and voting
That's the
separately.
appointment of the new councillor.
And we can start with number 1, item number 1, yes. Lord Mayor, your microphone.
I'm right to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Johnston, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Item A here is the appointment of the new councillor for Paddington Ward and also appointing that councillor to the membership of council standing committees as well. Obviously, we've had the recent retirement of Councillor Peter Maddock as the long-serving councillor for Paddington Ward. As the City of Brisbane Act and state legislation allows, it allows for the appointment of a new councillor within 12 months of the election. And this is the opportunity which saves the ratepayers money in terms of the need to do by-elections. And it also gives the residents of that area an opportunity to try before they buy, which I think is a positive thing. And so the LNP has been through a selection process, a pre-selection process, and Claire Jenkinson is the LNP nomination for this role, and has been put forward as the new councillor for Paddington Ward. Claire has lived in the inner west of Brisbane for more than 40 years, knows her community back to front. Knows her community back to front, and also works, until recently, worked day to day, right in the heart of the community as well, in an important community-facing role in the local area. Claire has already hit the ground running even before this official appointment, and I was out and about on the weekend with her at the Barden State School Mayfair, which was actually held in June, but it was a wonderful event. And Claire, from my observation, is the perfect person for this role because she loves the community, she loves people, she was straight into it. Didn't need to wait for any guidance or instructions. She was rolling the sleeves up, getting into it, and really excited about this opportunity to serve the people of Paddington Ward in this place. I do wish Claire all the best in the coming months. This is a unique job, and whichever side of politics you're on, it is something that I know everyone goes into with a desire to serve the community and to build a better Brisbane. And I want to welcome Claire officially on board as a councillor following this vote, obviously, and also wish her all the best for the coming months. I really look forward to working with her, Mr Chair, and thank her for... Oh, she's here. And thank her for her interest and dedication to the people of Paddington Ward and also to the City of Brisbane. So I commend this particular item to the Chamber.
Thank you. Further debate on item A?
Thanks very much, Chair. I just rise to note Labor's support for this item in appointing Claire Jenkinson as the councillor for the Paddington Ward, and note former Councillor Maddock's long service to council and to his community. 16 years, I think, was it? Yeah, 16 years. He almost, I guess, retired, but 15 and a half years served his community, and certainly put on record our appreciation for his service. We might have disagreed on plenty, but do welcome this item today in appointing the new council, so that community is represented. I'm sure the incoming council is going to have a tough fight on her hands. I understand the Greens came within a couple of hundred votes last time. So it'll be interesting. It will be an interesting 152. There you go. It'll be a very interesting race to watch this time around, and I'm sure.
Councillors, come on.
And I'm sure in Claire hitting the ground running, we'll have some views that we'll look forward to around Council's embarrassing court defeat over the behemoth billboard that was handed down just recently in Red Hills. There's plenty of issues in that community that the incoming councillor is going to have to sink her teeth into, but we'll welcome her contribution to the chamber.
Thank you. Any further debate on item 1? Councillor Johnston. Councillor Hammond, please. Come on, please, all of you. Calm down. Councillor Johnston.
What a delightful person Councillor Hammond is.
Councillors,
Stands up, rails against other female councillors in this place, accuses them of terrible things, and yet here she is at it again. I rise just to speak on the appointment of Claire Jenkinson to the Paddington ward, and there's a couple of things that I would like to note. And I say this, I can see that must be the lady who's just come into the chamber and who is watching on. I presume this is because there is a swearing in scheduled very shortly, and perhaps the Lord Mayor's off to that, I don't know. But what I would just say is that Peter Maddock has been missing in action as the councillor for Paddington Ward for 4 years. 4 years. His residents are extremely unhappy with the way in which he represented them, and that is reflected in the way in which his vote has declined over recent years. He abandoned much of his ward on development issues. He's neglected maintenance of his suburbs. And I think that generally, I don't think he thought he would win in 2020 to start with, and he's just been essentially sitting here in this place marking time for the last 3 years. So I say to the councillor who's coming in, whatever happens, this ward needs genuine representation. I note the councillor does not live locally, and despite the way the Lord Mayor's dressing it up, she doesn't. And I don't know if that's going to change. And obviously, not everybody lives in their ward. But there is a big difference between an inner city ward like this and the location of where this councillor actually does live. And that's something that she will need to think carefully about as she goes about her role. What? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Councillor Johnson, come on.
My gosh, oh my gosh. Well, here's the other little bit of good advice I'm going to give you. In reading all the council papers, I see that all of this was stitched up in Councillor Mackay's office, the councillor for Walter Taylor. The councillor for Walter Taylor is on the skinniest
Point of order,
margins.
Mr Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Toomey.
Mr Chair, on relevance, neither the former councillor for Paddington or Councillor Mackay are actually in the papers before us.
Yeah. Councillor Johnson, I do bring you back to the matter that's before us for debate.
Firstly, we are replacing the councillor for Paddington Ward, Peter Maddock, with the new or proposed councillor, Claire Jenkinson. The Lord Mayor hopped up and praised Peter Maddock. Yes. And according to the almost new chairperson of council, he's not relevant. Well, thank you for supporting my case.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order to you.
Could you
Councillor
bring the councillor for Tennyson back to what is in front of us, please?
Councillor, I'm going to allow the debate to continue. Councillor Maddock's name is mentioned in the motion, so as whatever Councillor Johnson wants to say or whatever people believe it is, her comments are, is mentioned in this report. But I don't believe the councillor for Walter Taylor Ward is mentioned in this report.
Yes, he is. Am I the only one that's actually read the council papers here today? Guess who the witness is for signing all the papers for the appointment of Miss Jenkinson to this role? Councillor James Mackay. Where was it all done? Ticked off in the Walter Taylor Ward office. So is a statutory declaration not correct, is it? The information you've provided to council for the appointment of Ms Jenkinson, is it not correct? Because this says it was declared in the presence of Edward James Innes Mackay at the Walter Taylor Ward office the appointment of Ms Jenkinson. Now, Mr Chairman, I'm extremely concerned that this is a fake document. So far, we've had Councillor Toomey and Councillor Mackay say what I've said is untrue. Now, this is the paperwork that we were given for the appointment of this lady. Is this false? Have false documents been signed now for the appointment of Ms Jenkinson? Mr Chairman, I'm asking you a serious question. Or can I believe what is provided in these papers today?
Councillor Johnson, you know I'm not in a position to be able to answer your question, and I don't intend to.
The only
if you want to
lies
make
in
an
here-
assertion about it, make it elsewhere.
Hey, I'm making it here because it is relevant and it's in the report.
And
the only
it's-
people who don't know what's in these reports are in the LNP. One of them signed off on the documents and the other one's about to be the chairperson of council. It's in
Point of
the
order,
documents.
Mr Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Howard.
Perhaps instead of the screaming and the yelling, we could look at what the document says, which is the witness's place of employment. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. And that may resolve the issue. I don't know because
No,
I
it
wasn't there,
doesn't.
Councillor
And it
Johnston.
wasn't-
Stop talking. I'm talking. I wasn't there to witness the signature, so I can't answer your question. But thank you, Councillor Howard, for your response on that issue. Councillor Johnson, you can continue.
Great, I can see now there's another LNP councillor that's confirmed it. Now, this wasn't the issue that I was going to raise. What I was going to pass on is some good advice to Ms Jenkinson, and perhaps she's got the idea from it now. You won't be able to trust what they tell you. The councillor for Walter Taylor Ward is on the way out the door. He has so many problems in his ward. He and the Lord Mayor are supporting duplication of the Walter Taylor Bridge. He wants to take one of the busiest and most popular libraries out of the major regional shopping town and build it on a stranded piece of land outside a major intersection. He has got the wrong priorities. I encourage you to look elsewhere for local advice, and I hope that this is not a reflection of the people that you will listen to when you come to this place.
Further debate on item A. Any further debate? I now put this to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. According to the schedule I have for the movement of motions in seriatim, we now move to debate on items 2 and 3 in the agenda, items 2 and 3. Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Congratulations to Councillor Clare. While I find the right documents. Okay, so these relate to infrastructure charges and rebates, is that correct, Mr Chair?
Infrastructure charge debt management policy.
Yep.
Yep. And the various adoptions from A through to J.
Okay, so this should be a pretty straightforward process because it's what we do every year. It is non-controversial and it is providing for important policy outcomes that support outcomes for rebates and infrastructure charges reductions for a number of different organisations. This is consistent with what we've done every year in the budget. And so I'm anticipating there won't be a lot of debate about this, but I commend these items to the chamber as we see each year.
Thank you. Is there any further debate on items 2 or 3? Councillor Cassidy.
Can I ask that item 3B, the debt policy, be taken seriatim for voting?
It already is.
No, just 3B. Just the debt policy.
Oh, item 3B. Okay.
3B.
Okay.
We have in previous years, yeah.
3B, seriatim for voting.
Yep.
Okay.
So 2, revoking the infrastructure charge debt management policy adopted by council resolution last year is item 2, something we'll support. There's a whole list here, A through J of items before us today, which includes the investment policy, debt policy, pensioner remissions, same level as last year. The Lord Mayor went out with great fanfare and used the level of pensioner rates remissions as some sort of, saying that he's offering lots of cost of living relief. It's the same each year, but we do support that. The same for decades, that's right. We do support that. Not-for-profit organisation partial rebate of general rates, which is something we support, as well as the payment of overdue rates and charges policy, which is on a case-by-case basis and at some discretion. Kindergartens partial rebate of rates we support, and the infrastructure charge debt management policy, which is required. And the infrastructure charge resolution. The build to rent, item I, build to rent incentive policy at attachment J, there is no specified level in there, just so you're referring to refer to other, the relevant fees and charges within the budget, as it does also at item J, the not-for-profit affordable housing provider rebate as well. We'll support these items, but you would think that there would be a more specified level, a serious commitment around the incentivising of build to rent, and also the partial rebate of general rates policy for not-for-profit affordable housing providers. Now, Chair, this is one where we've raised this issue over the last 12 or 18 months, where Councillor Allen and the Lord Mayor and others and Councillor Cunningham continue to get up and say, well, Council already offers rates, rebates and rates remissions to affordable, not-for-profit community housing providers. They say that they're doing enough. What this policy doesn't do is specify an amount. It doesn't do that. It delegates that authority to somebody else. And I know in talking to Councillor Allen said earlier today that community housing providers apparently love Brisbane City Council and couldn't ask for anything more. Well, no. I've spoken to a lot of them, and I know that for one of them, a pretty big provider in Brisbane, last year their rates remission was 5%. 5%. 5%. So that's not set in the policy. It's obviously decided somewhere. I don't know whether it's ENC or a delegate of council. So we will support any support for community housing providers, but do recommit that we will offer genuine support, both in infrastructure charge discounts, development fee discounts, and genuine rate support for community housing providers. We won't be supporting the debt policy at attachment C, which is 3B before us today.
Thank you. Further debate on items 2 and 3? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, just briefly with respects to items 2 and 3, I want to speak briefly about, first up, the debt management policy. It remains incredibly disappointing that this administration's botched financial management is putting council into further debt. We're being asked to approve today further increases to council's debt levels, and those are going to rise by $395 million this year, an estimated $275 million next year, $245 million after that, and so on and so on. And apparently in the year of the Olympics, we won't be borrowing any money. Does anybody believe that? I don't. I don't think this document's worth the paper it's printed on. The Lord Mayor will be long gone by then, I presume. But I look forward to framing this document and perhaps leaving it for whoever comes after me, because I don't think I'll be here in 2032 either, that this council and this Lord Mayor aren't going to borrow any money in 2032. What I do note, though, is that the profligate Lord Mayor and LNP Council have are causing debt to rise to unacceptable levels in this city. And they are not spending it on things that are necessary for the city. This money is going into the botched metro project, and we're about to discuss that at a later point. But this debt is a direct result of the LNP's financial mismanagement and mishandling of major projects in this city. The per capita net debt is going to be, or proposed to be, $2,500 for every single Brisbane resident, and that will rise again next year to $2,638 per person per capita in Brisbane, and up again the year after that. So we just see the way in which this Lord Mayor and this administration waste money on bad projects. We also see that one of the key financial indicators for the city, the net financial liabilities ratio, is sitting at a whopping 159%, and that is forecast to increase to 161% next year. Now, former LNP Treasurer Peter Costello said the good indication of where that should be is at 60%. So this council's almost 3 times higher than where one of the LNP's best financial managers thinks that net debt ratio should be. That is a warning to every single Brisbane resident that the finances of this city are not being well managed by the LNP. The debt that has been run up, and this for all the new councillors, in 2009 this council had no debt. It now, what, $3.2 billion? $3.2 billion, I think debt's up to. In 2009 there was no debt. Every cent of debt that this city owes has been run up on a tab on the credit card by the LNP. And a few years ago they actually passed some debt policy saying, well, $500 million of that would never be paid off. It would just go in the bottom, still there, it'd be sitting there, and they will never pay it off. The interest being paid on this would be phenomenal. It'd probably fix every footpath in the city. So when this LNP administration stands up and says they are good financial managers, they are not. They are not. I also note that the LNP is again messing with the market in terms of picking winners when it comes to partial rates rebates. And I just want to note, and I listened to Councillor Cassidy, and I'm quite shocked. I'm not surprised, because the documents themselves before us are like 1 or 2 pages. They're not what I'd call a policy. It's more like a statement of intent or something. It's not a policy. And too much power is being delegated away to others. But what concerns me is that this LNP administration have failed to support flood-affected residents with any rates rebates this year. Last year I moved motions. The Lord Mayor begrudgingly then put some money in the budget. But we still have 15, 16 months on from the floods, people who can't get back into their homes. They can't find builders. They haven't got enough money. You know, their insurers are not supporting them. There are so many problems that are happening out in our suburbs, and we have derelict homes, and we have residents who are still wanting support. So I don't have a problem with giving money for kindies, although we've got plenty of kindies. We've got money for build to rent. We're giving money to developers. But why is it that this council cannot put in place some sort of rate reliefs for people who can't live in their homes? In some places, because of major subsidence, like at Sherwood. We've got people who can't go back. Their homes have to be demolished at some point. These homes are uninhabitable, and this council should be offering real rates relief to flood-affected residents who can't live in their homes for whatever reason. It just is disappointing to me that this Lord Mayor again has abandoned those residents, and I certainly haven't forgotten them, and it's not good enough in my view. So whilst I support the rates rebates for our pensioners and kindies and things like that, it is very disappointing that the Lord Mayor has failed to include rates relief for the worst flood-affected residents in our city, yet again.
Any further debate on items 2 or 3? Lord Mayor? Okay, we We now move to the vote on item 2, the revoking of infrastructure charter's debt management policy as per the notice of motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by Deputy Mayor and by Councillor Landers. Please ring the bells. Ayes to the right, noes to the left. Thanks, Billy. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 25 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Councillors, please return to your seats. In regard to item 3, item B was taken seriatim for voting, so we might go to the vote on that item first. So the vote is now for item 3B, which is the debt policy as at attachment C in the notice of motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Collier seconding. Please ring the bells. Ayes to the right, noes to the left. Thanks, Billy. Thanks, Clark.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 19 in favour and 7 against.
Thank you. Declare that carried. Councillors, please return to your seats. The next vote is for the adoption of item 3, except for 3B, so items A through J, except for B, as per the notice on the notice paper, the agenda on the notice paper. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it.
Division. Second.
Division called by the Deputy Mayor and by Councillor Landers. Please ring the bells. Ayes to the right, noes to the left. Okay, thanks, Billy. Clerks, result.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 26 in favour.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, please return to your seats. Councillors, we're now moving to debate on items 4, 7 and 8 as a block. Items 4, 7 and 8 as per the agenda on the notice paper. Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Just in relation to the question, Councillor Johnson asked about the green building incentive, which is one of these items. The way that this incentive is structured is that a building must have an application lodged, it must be approved, it must be then constructed, and it must be completed to a certain standard at the end of the process to receive this incentive. And so there is a significant lead time before buildings qualify. So there's a number of buildings at the moment that are in the process of being assessed finally about whether they qualify for this. But obviously, because of that lead time, we're extending the policy out so that they can continue as they roll through that period, which takes several years when you think about it. Application, then to construction, to finalisation, and then final certification and assessment. And so that process is ongoing with a number of buildings, but what we're doing today will allow that incentive to be paid out, provided those buildings are certified as acceptable under this policy. So there's certain requirements that they have to meet in order to receive this incentive. It's only paid once the building is completed and certified.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
So just then to clarify, is the Lord Mayor saying there are no buildings that have yet qualified and no funding has been?
Are you asking if the Lord Mayor will take a question?
No, my question to the Lord Mayor was how many buildings have received the incentive and what's the total amount? So I just want to be clear that I get an answer to my question.
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I've answered the question. So in terms of the other...
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
In fact, my question was how many buildings may have received this incentive and what was the total amount? And the Lord Mayor has made some general statements about how the scheme operates, which I understand, but my question is quite specific and I am entitled to an answer. So I'd appreciate if it's 0 and 0, that's great. If not, I would appreciate an answer to my question, please.
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. As I was saying, I've answered that question, and Councillor Johnston may not be happy with that answer, but I've answered it. So moving on, the Green Building Incentive Program, as I've just referred to, was initiated a number of years ago to make sure we support what in many cases are higher cost buildings. So these come at the sustainability features that we're encouraging come at a significant construction cost, and obviously it's something we want to encourage. Councillor Johnston herself earlier said that buildings need to have more sustainability features and listed off features that she believes should be added to buildings. And so in acknowledgement that it can cost more to build a green sustainable building, this is the reason why we've got an incentive program in place to support those buildings going forward, but it also signals to the market that this is the type of building that we would like to see more of. And it is certainly leading to a number of projects either under construction or just finalising construction who are excited about the opportunity to get this incentive. And so by approving this policy today and the extension of this program, we can ensure that those buildings are assessed and certified, and if they qualify, receiving this incentive. Item O is the Victoria Park Land Management Plan and Local Government Infrastructure Designation. As I've referred to previously, the Victoria Park Master Plan, the final version of that was released on Budget Day, and that involved extensive community consultation, 2 rounds of community consultation and engagement, and what that showed is a strong level of community support for what we're proposing here. And there is no doubt about that. 86% overall support from the community following 2 extensive rounds of community engagement. And that's a positive thing because there was significant time and effort put into making sure that the community was engaged. Now, I acknowledge that there are some people living close to the park who would not like to see this as a destination park for the city. I understand that's their view, they're entitled to that view, but this was always intended to be a destination park, just in the same way that some of our other major parklands are parks that people travel to from different parts of the city. The great thing about it is that it will be serviced by 2 metro stations, it will be serviced by a new Cross River Rail station eventually, when that project is completed. And it will have great access to public transport. It will also be in a close walking distance and cycling distance from a lot of the growth that's happening in a very quickly growing area of the city. And I'm not just referring to Fortitude Valley nearby or places like Spring Hill, but also Bowen Hills State Development Area or Priority Development Area, where there's significant growth and development occurring. And so this will be an asset for the entire city, but we've also, as a result of the consultation process, made a number of changes to the planning. And so based on that community feedback, we have scaled back some of the built form in the parklands. There will still be some important facilities built there, but an important part of our plan is the rewilding of the park, which will see around 60% of the site having tree cover, which I think is an important thing for the community. It will provide shade, it will provide habitat, it will provide wonderful green spaces for the community to enjoy. But also, we know that people like things to do when they're going to green spaces as well. And, the pathway network, new playgrounds and facilities are all part of this plan as well. And so this now moves forward to start the construction phase of this project. But as part of our process going forward, the land management plan, which is based on the community consultation and planning work we've done, and also the local government infrastructure designation, needs to go forward for approval. And those two documents will go to the state government for approval. And so this is the next step that we're voting on now. We're effectively voting on our submission to the state government, and they'll then make assessments based on our thorough planning process. We've certainly heard that the state government has been supportive of the process that we have engaged to this point in time, the extensive community consultation that's occurred. And they are, from what we've heard, overall very supportive of what we're proposing for Victoria Park. So we look forward to working with them on getting these two plans approved and then rolling into the construction phase. Item P is the Stores Board amendment to the significant contracting plans for Brisbane Metro. Brisbane Metro involves many different components, one of which is very important is the construction of the Metro depot at Rochedale. Council awarded a fixed price contract with the constructor of the depot. That contract was essentially in our favour, but that contract also has created some challenges for the construction company, because the time between now and when we awarded the contract, construction prices have moved significantly. And we know what the opposition will say all about this. They'll conveniently ignore Cross River Rail. They'll conveniently ignore every single state government major project underway at the moment, which is under massive cost pressure. And they'll somehow suggest that this is just an issue that's related to council. I call BS on that one, Mr. Chair. The reality is every major project of scale is facing construction cost pressures. And so what we're doing here is we're proposing an amendment to this construction contract to help the contractor with some of the increased costs that they have incurred. And what I will say is that the construction contractor has been under a lot of pressure in terms of what they are expected to deliver under this project, and us being a reliable partner to work with ADCO on this project requires us, I think, to amend the contract. Now, even though we could technically enforce the fact that this is a fixed price contract, the reality is that would then bring on the risk that the contractor could no longer complete the job. And that would not be a good outcome for anyone. We're back to square one, finding a new construction contractor, negotiating and awarding a new construction contract part of the way during construction. And so I think we have to be really upfront here that Like so many other major projects, this major depot construction is under significant cost pressures due to national and global impacts, supply chain issues, commodity costs, things such as steel and concrete, all under massive pressure. And so what we're proposing here is a change to the contracting plan to allow us to cover some of those additional
Lord Mayor, your
costs.
time has expired on this item.
Move for an extension. Seconded.
An extension of time for the Lord Mayor has been moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Landers. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Lord Mayor.
As I said, this is the choice that we have here is potentially to see a contractor unable to proceed due to the incredible cost pressures on them, or us to be a good partner which will work with them in a reasonable way to help meet some of those costs. Those costs have not occurred because of anything the contractor has done. Those costs have not occurred because of anything council has done. They are the reality of the currently changing global and national construction market at the moment. And so by making this change, we can ensure the depot can continue to proceed with construction. I was just out there the other day, and you can see the major frame of the main building in place now. Massive earthworks have been done, and you can see the depot really starting to take shape. So it's an exciting part of the project, but we need to make this change as an act of good faith to make sure that this project can continue. That was the third item here. The figures are available there in front of every councillor to see. They can see how those figures are proposed to change. And in accordance with state legislation and also council requirements, those figures are commercial in confidence, but they're obviously available for every councillor to see. So when councillors claim that the figures are secret, they can see the figures right in front of them. There is nothing secret to these councillors in the chamber. They can see this. They can use that to make their decision. They can either vote against it, they can vote for it, they can abstain, but in the end, the figures have been provided to each councillor.
Thank you. No, Councillor Cassidy, 4, 7 and 8.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Can I just check which of these is seriatim for voting at the moment?
Item 4.
4 by
and then
itself.
7 and 8 together.
7 and 8 together. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks very much. I think the Lord Mayor is protesting a bit much in saying, oh, well, I think these people might say this about it and they might. They sound very worried. They sound very worried about their record. Yeah, it's a fair bit, isn't it? Millions and millions of dollars. We'll come to that in a moment, the Metro. On item 4, the Brisbane Green Building Incentive Policy, very similar to the other incentive policies, we will support this one to 50% discount, like there was on the 5-star hotels. It's not something we supported. No. Which saw I think it was $8 million in developer discounts given to private developers who develop 5-star hotels. Might have been friends, who knows? Might have been mates. To build 5-star hotels in the CBD. There are other incentives. So this is a policy lever the council can pull. When Councillor Allen gets up and the Deputy Mayor gets up and the Lord Mayor and Councillor Cunningham, they will get up and say, Council is doing everything it can in the housing space. It's pulling every lever, which, at the moment is a TLPI, a Kurilpa, and $1 million. $1 million for Pinkenbar. And a pop-up library. Yeah, that's right, the mobile library. They claim on the one hand that's all the levers they can pull. The LNP can only pull those levers. But for other types of development, in this case it's green buildings, they can pull another lever, which is infrastructure charge discounts. And this one's at 50%. Do you know that's a lot higher? That's an awful lot higher than the discounts that are given to community housing providers. An awful lot higher. And when we got those figures recently, it was $8 million for 5-star hotel developers and $250,000 to community housing providers. And Councillor Allen got up and said, well, the way to explain that is the value to this council anyway, the value of five-star hotels is much greater than the value of community housing, of social housing and affordable housing. That's what they said. That's what they said. So they value those developments over community housing providers. So the Moreton Bay Council is now giving a 100%.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Allen.
Could you bring Councillor Cassidy back to the policy in front of us? He's sort of drifted off into another space.
Councillor Allen, I'm allowing the debate to continue.
Thanks, Chair. We could be offering a 100. We could offer a 100% discount for green buildings. If Council wanted, could do that. Moreton Bay Council is currently offering a 100% discount for community housing providers. The Lord Mayor said that in his speech just now that these buildings are extremely expensive to build as 5-star, 6-star and beyond now green buildings. I'll tell you what's really difficult to build as well for not-for-profit community housing providers is anything. They're run on the smell of an oily rag, and that every single dollar, so, let's offer more than 5% rates discounts. Let's offer more than over a decade, $250,000. I think it was over a decade. That $250,000 is spread over a decade. That level of support is not adequate. We support this today, but we say to the LNP, you can't come in here on one day and say you're doing everything you possibly can, and then the next day prove yourselves wrong. Prove yourselves to be absolute hypocrites. Everybody sees that. Everybody sees that. The next item, item 7, is the Victoria Park Brisbane Master Plan, land management plan, and LGIP, local government infrastructure designation, I should say. The Lord Mayor has just explained to us that this project, one of his signature projects, was very. We'll go back a step. Councillor Davis earlier today said that it used to be $84 million because that's all that was funded up to a certain point last year. That's all it was then, and today it's $141 million because the project's moving on. I hate to see what it's going to be next year. Can you imagine that? If it goes up $54 million in 1 year, and the Lord Mayor just got up and explained that that's as a result of removing items from the master plan. He said there's less sort of hard structures and less, as a result of community feedback, there'd be more reforesting of the park. But it's going to cost $54 million extra. What is going on? And which leads to the other common denominator. Lord Mayor was very defensive very early about these metro blowouts. And he said it's everyone else's fault, of course, and not his own. On this fixed price contract blowing out. Last time we had a fixed price contract, it didn't seem to worry too much and sent a company broke. That was on the Kingston Smith Drive project, which was a $100 million blowout. Had Adrian Schrinner's fingers all over it. There was that $60 million blowout on that IT contract a few years ago. Had the Lord Mayor's fingerprints all over that one. The $13 million blowout. Actually, I think it got up to $18 million in the end by the time the contract was paid out on City Cycle. Remember that one?
Common denominator.
There's a common denominator in all of this, and that is this Lord Mayor. And we can add now the Victoria Park Brisbane project to that, which is a $54 million blowout on trees. It's just incredible, getting bigger and bigger. And all these projects are all the Lord Mayor's vanity projects. They're all his sort of hand-picked ones. That's not to mention. The overall blowout as well. The $1 billion extra on Metro and the hundreds of millions extra on the Green Bridges. Remember, it was going to be $550 million for 5, and that was the 75% contribution. And then I remember they said, they'd go it alone if they had to. They'd like other money, but they're going to go it alone. Well, all that's going to be eaten up by the time that this is all said and done. This was one of the last fixed price contracts, by the way. I'm not sure whether councils realise this. This and the Kangaroo Point Bridge is the last fixed price contract. So in the future, all of these contracts for major projects of this Lord Mayor for the next 9 months that he's in this job, anything that's signed up for, all of that risk is assumed by ratepayers. Because, as we now know, when private companies are looking at this council run by the LNP, they go, well, they look at how these projects are managed and they go, they're not bidding for them. we were explained on major projects, major ones like, for instance, the Metro or Green Bridges. In the past, you might have got 8 or 10 companies tendering for those projects, and they had to assume all that risk, of course, because that's how it worked. Now, today, they'd be lucky to get one, and council and the ratepayers of Brisbane have to assume all that risk. So there is a common denominator, and it's the Lord Mayor. It's those political decisions he's making in his budget, and he is the reason that we're seeing these cost blowouts on these projects. He's claiming that they're not secret, but he won't release them publicly, but they're millions and millions and millions of dollars. And that every time there's an item, every single time there's an item about the Metro that comes to this place, there's a cost blowout, and apparently it's somebody else's fault. That's the theme of this LNP administration. We won't be supporting either item 7 or 8 tonight.
Further debate on items 4, 7 or 8? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. I rise to speak on 4, 7 and 8, but particularly item 4 and item 8, and I'll start with the Metro. Oh, God. I mean, it's a shame. It is honestly a terrible shame for the residents of Brisbane that this LNP administration is throwing more and more money down a black hole after this bad project. We can see from the papers before us today, which are redacted and we're not allowed to talk about. So the Lord Mayor says, oh, councillors can see the figures, but I'm not allowed to talk about them. I'm actually not allowed to say what these numbers are. And they are putting this council further into debt. What we are allowed to talk about is why. And there's a couple of things I want to say here. This Metro project has been botched from the very beginning, and I said that earlier today. It's just been badly planned, badly designed, financially mismanaged. I mean, this is the administration that started building on state government land, or about to start building on state government land, without state government approval, and they had to pay out the contractors that had done the work millions of dollars for no purpose, wasted money on a tunnel under the cultural centre that was going to disconnect residents and their car park at the cultural centre from the cultural centre. It was botched. And what did they do in response to that? The biggest problem on the south side of Brisbane is that connection between the exit of the busway and getting across to the city on Melbourne Street, and this council's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. So that problem, there's gates there to try and stop people crossing and getting hit by bus. I mean, it's just a debacle. And yet they're spending then billions more dollars goes into building 200 metres of tunnel here in the city, and we can hear it boom, boom, boom underneath where we're sitting right now. And now, today, we find out there are more problems, and what a shock it is, more problems. First up, it seems there is a problem with the buses. And council has to increase the budget for verification services for the design and manufacture of the vehicles. Has the Lord Mayor come clean to say what they are? No, he has not. Yet he says to us we need millions of dollars more because the verification process has been reviewed, and we need more money than we first estimated. So what's the problem? Lord Mayor has stood up in this chamber for months and months saying, the bus is rolling around Brisbane, it's going really well, there's no problems, the bus is excellent, we've got the bus. We've already ordered 60 more. We've already ordered 60 more, so why is it 4 years after the contract we now find problems with the buses? Suddenly we need more money for verification. What's that? To send people overseas to Europe so that they can check whether they're being built properly? Is it for airfares? Is it because there's a problem? Is there a design change that needs to be made to the bus? Is there a problem that's been found in testing? Has the Lord Mayor come clean to the people of Brisbane what the millions of dollars he's asking for today are actually for? No, he has not. It's a secret. So not only is there a problem with the buses themselves, which are being manufactured overseas, there's a problem with the depot. The same depot the Lord Mayor has said for years is under construction, it's underway, it's well built. He's in here every 5 minutes proclaiming the Rochdale depot is the best part of the metro. As it turns out, it's also been botched. This is building a car park and a shed out on Greenfields in Rochdale, and he's botched it. It's a car park for buses and a shed for people to work in, and he's botched it. I cannot believe, and this is millions and millions and millions more for this. It is such bad financial management from this LNP administration. And guess what? This contract was let in 2019. 4 years later, a car park, a shed and a battery terminal haven't been built. That's what's going on here. The reason this project is going so badly is this LNP council cannot deliver on its promises. The Lord Mayor can't deliver on the metro, he can't deliver on his signature green bridges. He is incompetent and he's leading an incompetent administration. The two things that the Lord Mayor for the last, because there's not much else going on with the metro, there's a bit of tunnelling going on, but the two things that he claims are going so well for the city, it turns out they've been stuffed up. Stuffed up. He can't build the shed and the parking lot, and apparently there's a problem with the buses. And to fix this, he needs millions of dollars more. Well, as we found out through estimates, the total value of this project is somewhere north of $2.1 billion. Council's component of that is over 1.7, and I'd be guessing, I predicted it'd be over 2 billion ages ago. It's easy to see that's the case. This is a botched project, and this underscores how bad the administration of this project is by the LNP. The two things the Lord Mayor reckons been going great, he's been caught out right now, having to come begging for more money to fix up more problems created by his own mismanagement. Who, after 4 years since letting a contract to build a bus depot, hasn't got it built? 4 years. It's not good enough. It is absolutely botched. Just on the green building standards, I presume the answer to my question earlier today is actually 0 and 0. It's just a shame that the Lord Mayor can't be upfront with people about this. Now, this is a policy area in which Council has absolutely failed the City of Brisbane. Their idea of a green building has a trellis with some pot plants cascading down over the edge of a building. The much vaulted Buildings That Breathe policy was written by Councillor Julian Simmons when he was the planning chairperson. How long ago is that now? 5 or 6 years? The policy before us today that we are being asked to approve was actually overseen by a councillor who shot through when he knew the writing was on the wall, who became the federal member and got, kicked out unceremoniously, mainly because he stuffed up how development was handled in his own ward, and yet this council wants to implement that as policy in this city. Buildings That Breathe policy is lightweight. It is lightweight, and I'm interested in Councillor Massey's feedback on this. In my view, we need practical measures, and they're in the national standards. They're in there. They're in the Building Council standards. They're in the carbon standards. I'll talk about that in a moment. But the big problem is that the developers in Brisbane are not delivering them. So I'm interested in how many new buildings in Brisbane have water capture and reticulation systems built into the high-rise building. If there's one, well, actually there probably is, Common Ground. I think that's the one that people point to. But I'd be really interested in what private development for commercial sale has built that kind of water reticulation and reuse systems into their high-rise. That should be the standard. Because that is a practical standard that can be met and that can be put into practice. 2, Energy. Without question, all of these buildings should be built with solar panels, solar power, other energy efficient systems and battery power to support them. And the reason they need battery power is so when these poor residents get trapped because it floods and they're trapped in their buildings, like all the people in West End just last year, with no power, no way to exit their building, no lighting, no way to get into their, nothing. So it's clear none of the buildings built in Brisbane to date in the intensification of the inner Brisbane area have got alternate power sources. So here's a no-brainer. This should be a mandatory standard. It should be. Water-sensitive design and energy efficiency and things like intelligent lighting. I mean, you know, most high-rise in Brisbane basically turn the fluoros on and they don't go off. Finally, I'll just say this. I think this will be one of those policies where we might end up with one or two of these. It looks good, but we know it's hollow promise from the Lord Mayor.
Expired. Is there any further debate on items 4, 7 or 8? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Can I rise to just contribute to the debate on item P, the amendment to the significant contracting plan for Brisbane Metro?
Number 8.
And sorry, item 4 in this, in this group. Look, as noted by the Lord Mayor, this item is to allow for an amendment to the significant contracting plan that was previously approved by this council for Brisbane Metro in particular, to amend the contract for the construction of the depot and the Metro vehicle verification contract. Now, as we know, Chair, and as the Lord Mayor mentioned, the construction industry is facing some very significant challenges at the moment. We have supply cost issues, so raw materials. We have lead time issues on those materials coming to site and coming to the country, which means additional time delay costs as well. There are skilled resource shortages, so you can't get certain contractors to site in a timely fashion, and there has to be delays as a result of that. And then there's the ongoing impact of COVID-19, and that has concertinaed through the construction industry. And then there's just general cost escalation because everyone is trying to build everything all at once in Australia, and particularly here in Queensland, the fastest growing state, and Brisbane being the fastest growing city and the fastest growing state in the nation. And of course, all of that means council is experiencing increasing costs and other challenges in terms of delivering projects and infrastructure for our city, and the effects of some of those impacts are referenced in this submission. Now, we know that the Metro Depot is one of the key elements of the Brisbane Metro project. It will be a state-of-the-art facility. It will have a 5 Green Star rated facility, and it will be home to our Brisbane Metro fleet. However, as outlined in the submission, the depot works have been heavily impacted by increase to the cost of materials, supply chain delays, as well as wet weather. Particularly at the start of the project, Councillor Huang, the local councillor, will remember we had months and months and months of continuous rain during the bulk earthworks period, where we had to move a significant amount of earth on that site around to build the profile pad for the depot. We couldn't work for months on that site due to the wet weather. So I'm sure that's our fault as well. Through you, Chair, Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Johnson had a good crack at us over that. I'm sure the wet weather was our problem. Look, the contractor that we have out there, ADCO, has absorbed many of these price increases themselves, but this amendment increases the contract value for the depot works to ensure that we can see this critical project through to completion. On the vehicle verification contract, as part of our vehicle manufacturing and testing process, we are undertaking a range of inspections and technical tests to the vehicle. We know our Metro vehicles are being manufactured by a company called Hess. They are a global leader in this space, so there's nothing to worry about, councillors, in terms of the quality of the vehicle. But look, a number of these tests need to be completed on site. And where is on site? On site is in Switzerland. So there needs to be, so there are of course some additional costs and technical tests that need to be
Councillor
need to be
Johnston, you'll
undertaken
listen to in
as a
silence.
result of the vehicle
Councillor
production
Johnston.
facility location. So, due to COVID, some of the necessary vehicle verification inspections were delayed due to travel restrictions. So there's a backlog, and as everyone knows, the cost of travelling at the moment is significant. So that has gone up as well. So this SCP amendment extends the contract to account for COVID delays, and it allows us to complete those necessary activities. And it's important to note, and I noticed that no councillors have mentioned, no opposition councillors have mentioned this. It's important to note that while we do ask for these increases in contract value in the SCP, there is no requirement to increase the Metro project budget overall, because this can be drawn from contingency. So despite that lie that you hear them repeat time and time again, that the Metro project has, it's now $1.1 billion they're saying the blowout is. So it literally, every time we come into the chamber, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the figure is not grounded in reality at all, Chair. They just make it up. They just lie. They have no problems coming in here and doing that time and time again. So, Chair, Councillor Cassidy made a bit of a flippant comment. I just want to reflect on that. He said that this was the last fixed price contract that we are entering into, because I don't know, I think maybe it was a reflection on the fact that council is now entering into a lot more pain share, gain share contracts. Well, that goes to show how far Councillor Cassidy is from the coalface, the reality of what it is like in the building and construction industry in this city at the moment. Large firms will not take on fixed price contracts in an environment where their input costs of materials and labour are changing all the time, are so rapidly changing. So if Councillor Cassidy were here in the Lord Mayor's seat, and we don't yet know if he's actually running for Lord Mayor, he's leaking that he's running for Lord Mayor, along with a number of other celebrity candidates who immediately deny it, but we don't know whether he'll be running. But if indeed he was sitting in this chair this time next year, Chair, and he was doing fixed price contracts, what he would find is that no one in industry would bid for them. That is the reality of the situation out there in industry at the moment. So, and I do pose the question to Labor councillors and Councillor Cassidy, what would they do in our position? What would they do with a fixed price contract where the contractor is now definitely no longer making any money out of it, and there are subcontractors who will potentially not get paid if it falls over, subbies that will be out of work? What would they do? The Labor Party, the party of the workers, what would they do? Well, they have said, so they've said, okay, I write down what they say about what they would do in terms of project management. They say they would manage it properly. They say they would manage it properly. They would do it better. They would streamline it. They use buzzwords and aphorisms, but they never tell you actually what they would do differently. They just magically would do it better. I know what Mark Bailey's saying very similar things that I'm saying, which are the reality of the industry at the moment. Now, Mark Bailey and I don't agree on much, but we do agree on the state of the construction and building industry in this state and in this city at the moment, and it is a very difficult time to be building it. So this administration, this Lord Mayor, is proud to be on the side of workers here in supporting some reasonable increases to these contracts in order to make sure that everyone gets paid, that the job gets completed to a high degree of quality. And then, Chair, we had a really poor contribution from Councillor Johnston, and she likened our state-of-the-art Metro depot at Rochedale to a car park and a shed. That is a literal quote from Councillor Johnston, said a car park and a shed. Oh, and I'll take that interjection from Councillor Johnston. She said she's worked for an engineering firm, and we know she is a fake engineer, Chair, because she was a spin doctor, I think, for FKP for a while, not a very good one, and then she's come in here, now she's a councillor, and it's funny, Chair, because I remember the last car park and a shed she campaigned against, which was the Sherwood Depot. And you would think if that was just a car park and a shed, then there would have been no problem with that depot. But what did we see? Councillor Johnston death charged her own political career over that depot. And you know what? It operates safely and peacefully in that community right now. The drivers love it, the residents love it, everyone's on board, but Councillor Johnston, who apparently still hates bus depots to this day. She still hates bus depots to this day. And I think, Chair, and we know that Councillor Johnston represents all of them over there, she is the leader of the opposition at the moment.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Claim to be misrepresented.
I'm not too sure.
Well, I agree with with you, Councillor Whitney. I would claim to be misrepresented. And I'm glad that you're standing up and saying, you know what, Councillor Johnson doesn't represent Labor councils here, because for far too long she's run your agenda, she tells you what to do, she tells you how to vote on things. So if you start to stand up and take a little bit of accountability.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Noted. But,
My point that I'm making here, Chair.
yeah. Councillor Johnson.
I claim to be misrepresented.
Okay.
Well, they don't like the Chair because it's the truth.
Point of order to you, Councillor.
In accordance with the meeting's local law, a councillor is required to have spoken before
Yes,
being able
thank
to
you,
claim
Councillor Owen. I was
misrepresentation.
going to make that point at the conclusion of Councillor Murphy's speech.
Well, I was actually out at a bus depot today, Chair, at Eagle Farm for the first 100 drivers that have been through our new streamlined recruitment program, Chair. And you know what? Those bus drivers don't think that their depot is a shed and a car park. They think it's a great place to work, and they think that they are making an extraordinary contribution to the City of Brisbane, not by driving for a company or a third party, by driving buses for the Brisbane City Council, a proud organisation that has served people in this city for 90 years. And I think they would be appalled to know what Councillor Johnson calls their place of work, a shed and a car park. In fact, I think it's disgusting. She should be ashamed of herself, and she should apologise to 2,500 bus drivers who she has offended through that appalling comment.
Thank you. Councillor Whitney, you can't claim misrepresentation. You haven't spoken in the debate. Councillor Johnson, your point of misrepresentation?
Yes. The deluded diatribe by the transport chairperson claimed I stood up and said that I had worked for had worked for an engineering company. In fact, I didn't actually address that in my speech at all. I actually spoke to the report. And secondly, the allegation that I'm the leader of the opposition, it's as tired, old and useless as the schoolboy politics of Councillor Ryan Murphy.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Any further debate on items 4, 7 or 8? Lord Mayor, summing up. Okay, we now move to votes. So we're dealing with item 4 first, which is attachment L, as has been referred to, the Brisbane Green Building Incentive Policy. All in favour of item 4, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no or nay. The ayes have it.
Division. Seconded.
Division called by Deputy Mayor and Councillor Landers. Please ring the bells. Ayes to the right, noes to the left. Thanks, Billy. Close the bar. Clark?
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 26 in favour.
Thank you. Councillors, please resume your seats, and I declare that item carried. Councillors, as a block, we're voting on items 7 and 8, otherwise known as attachment O and attachment P. All in favour of items 7 and 8, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Landers. Please ring the bells. Ayes to the right, noes to the left. Thanks, Billy. Clerks, please read the results.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 17...
Quiet, please, while the clerk's reading the result. Start again, please.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 19 in favour and 7 against.
Thank you. Declare that item carried. Councillors, please resume your seats. Okay, we now have 5, 6 and 9 for debate and vote. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the items in this group, the amendment of administrative arrangements. Changes in this submission are minor in nature and reflect a change in the name of some branches of council. Over time, roles and responsibilities change, and so too must the organisational structure. For example, human resources will be changed to people and culture. There are 2 new branches being created from the existing workforce, business engagement and performance, and property services, both to better manage the internal goings-on in council. City parking will also move from asset management to transport planning and operations. As I said, the changes are relatively minor in nature. Item N, Mr. Chair, relates to you. Your days are numbered, Mr. Chair, and that's a sad thing. But with you announcing your pending retirement, we're obviously moving to appoint a new chair and a new deputy chair of council. And so this submission appoints Councillor Toomey as the new chair and Councillor Sandy Landers as the new deputy chair of council. So obviously I flagged that this was coming a little while ago and won't be a surprise to anyone, but I did want to take this opportunity, Mr. Chair, to thank you for your time in the chair and once again to your service to the people of Brisbane, and do wish you all the best for the future. We watch eagerly to see what will happen with the next councillor for Hamilton Ward. It is relevant that there's a racetrack or 2 in your area because there's a Melbourne Cup field coming out to replace you. But they will be voted on. Yeah, they will have a pre-selection. There will be a pre-selection. And finally, item Q is the delegation of powers. Every year, City Legal reviews Council's delegations to make sure the organisation is making decisions correctly and effectively. Council is delegated powers through multiple bits of legislation, like the City of Brisbane Act, the Environmental Protection Act, the Planning Act. Often these state government laws are changed or amended, and council delegations also have to change. In this submission, around 70% of the delegations remain the same. However, there are a number of new delegations which primarily reflect amendments to state legislation, also together with the operational needs of specific work areas, including those relating to rates, concessions and rebates, and making sure that those concessions and rebates can be efficiently and effectively provided to the people of Brisbane. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further debate on these items? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. And could I also check which of these items has been taken seriatim for voting, if
None.
any? None at the moment. So this is 5, 6 and 9. Could I just ask that 6 be taken seriatim.
6
5 and 9 are together for voting.
6 seriatim for voting, 5 and 9 together.
Yeah, thank you. So on the first one, item number 5, which is the administrative, approve the amendment to the administrative arrangements as set out in attachment M. The continued sort of tinkering after 20 years in office, which is just sort of conforming the organisation of council to the new reality of the LNP, and their practices here through continued use of contracting out. The organisation increasingly seeing elected councillors, well, certainly Labor ones, and I'm sure the Independent Greens Council as well, as a bit of an annoyance to the process, a bit of an afterthought, briefed last, if at all, about projects and things like that. Not talking about the officers we work with on a day-to-day basis on the ground, but the corporatisation and the bureaucracy being at a high level in council, being, I suppose, melded with the political level here in the chamber and the civic cabinet level has been concerning for a number of years, and the changes we've seen to the administrative arrangements, like we've got here today, is another step down that road. And to see those changes that the Lord Mayor just talked about now, as well as a lot of the on-the-ground changes we've seen in the organisation over the last couple of years, have not delivered good outcomes for the ratepayers. They're certainly, sort of in line with that sort of MBA thinking around management structures and corporate organisations, but not around the delivery of services to the suburbs of Brisbane. That certainly isn't what these changes are aimed at all. And we know the level of contracting out, the amount of contractors being engaged to manage those contractors that are doing basic work in council is obviously requiring significant changes to the way in which council delivers services. Not in a good way. Not in a good way, in a bad way. So we won't be supporting the changes to the administrative arrangements, and commit to a root and branch review of all of those contracting practices and the way in which council is structured, and we will fundamentally restructure council to be a service delivery organisation once again. So we won't be supporting this item today before us. Item 6, I'll leave that to the end. Item 9 is the delegation. On a similar vein, obviously we accept that some things need to be delegated to ENC in the first instance when council doesn't sit. When we're in recess, obviously there does need to be decisions made on a regular basis. They are made whether we think their decisions are good or bad, or the intent of the people who are making them, whatever. They are elected councillors who are representing the community broadly. There are certain things, obviously, that should be delegated to council officers with the agreement of council, but the level of delegations that we've seen in recent years, we think is excessive. So we won't be supporting this item, as we haven't over the last couple of years. And finally, item number 6 is the approving of the appointment of Chair and Council and Deputy Chair of Council. So this item removes you, Chair. I don't know if it was voluntary. It's all going to be voted on. I don't know whether they're going to drag you out of the chair. Or they're going to drag. I suppose you have to be removed by resolution out of the chair and replaced by Councillor Toomey, and then Toomey replaced by Councillor Landers in that role. You've served, I think, since 2006, since that by-election.
Yep.
That was, I think, is that after the state election in 2006? Just before?
It was after the state election.
Thanks. Indulge your conversation here at the moment. So that would have been the third election I worked on. It was that by-election. The first one, of course, was the 2004 federal election. Don't mention that one too much in Labor circles. I'd never kept any of that Mark Latham gear, I can tell you that. And then the next would have been the 2006 election, and then the Hamilton by-election with Anna Herzog, who was the Labor candidate at the time in that election, and certainly remember handing out how to votes then. That seems like a long time ago. I'm sure it does for you in many ways. And I just want to put on record our thanks for your service. Again, there have been lots and lots of disagreements on our side with decisions that you have made in various roles, and you've had lots in this council. I've always found on a personal working relationship basis that you were very reasonable in that role, whether that was particularly around in the environment parks space, where we met on many occasions and feels like was more regular back then than it is these days, and that working relationship I thought was positive. And I have, and you've indulged me a lot in an often rolling critique of the chairing of meetings, but I have definitely, I'm happy to put this on record, thought you have been the best chair of council that I have experienced in this place, the fairest, and someone that has tried to engage debate in a respectful way. And I'm sure we don't always follow that all the time, and have appreciated you trying to guide that through there. So thank you very much for your service, Chair, and I wish you well in your retirement, whatever you choose to do for the rest of your life.
Thank you very much. Make him blush. Is there any further debate? Further debate. Councillor Johnston.
Sorry, I just thought someone from the LNP might want to speak. I rise to speak on the 4 items, the delegations and... Oh no, it's only 3 now. Yep. The 3 items, the delegations and the appointment of the chair and deputy chair. I want to start with the appointment of the chair and the deputy chair in the first instance. I think that the problem with how these meetings are chaired is that successive chairs have not engaged fairly with applying the rules when this meeting is underway. And for many years, I have been the person who's been kicked out, you know, ejected and so forth. Now that has eased, but I had to go to the Supreme Court and this council had to be embarrassed, and Angela Owen particularly, into you know, what was an abuse of power, which is how the Supreme Court described it. The fact that I've had to do that just to simply exist in this place is pretty appalling. My view is that, you know, even over the last few days when I've been on a warning, almost every other councillor in here, particularly though Councillor Hammond, Councillor Wines and Councillor Murphy, has been interjecting non-stop. None of them were warned. So in my view, nothing has changed. I don't know whether it will change under Councillor Toomey and Councillor Landers, but we will see. The rules have to apply to everybody. They can't just apply in one way to the LNP, in one way to Labor and in a different way to me, and now we have Councillor Massey perhaps in a different way to her. I don't know. It is unreasonable and unfair what's happened in this chamber over a very, very, very long time. Sadly, I also can't agree with Councillor Cassidy about your performance as a chair in other areas. The decision to stand up and cut the upgrade of the Cracknell Road, Ipswich Road intersection on the spot in this chamber was an appalling decision. The only thing I was calling for was pedestrian safety improvements to be included in the scope of the project, and they weren't included, which was getting a safe crossing point across a slip lane. And Councillor David McLaughlin, the then chair, just unilaterally stood up and cancelled the whole project. It's not come back on the agenda, and meanwhile people keep dying on Ipswich Road, and it is one of the worst and most dangerous roads in Brisbane. So unfortunately that's the legacy I'm left with. Chairing that has been applied unfairly and projects cancelled on a whim by the LNP chairman because he didn't like constructive feedback given about including pedestrian safety in a road project as the infrastructure chair. I don't think that's a legacy to be proud of. I also note that the LNP had said over and over again that in refusing to debate the motion to appoint me to the Parks and Environment Committee, that we needed to appoint the new councillor and we needed to, you know, because of the changes to the chair and the deputy chair, and it might have even been Councillor Landers who stood up and did that. I can't remember, but I think it might have been Councillor Landers. She stood up and said, oh, we can't possibly appoint you to the environment chair at this stage because this councillor's retiring and we have to appoint a new chair and deputy chair. Well, she's got a brand new shiny job and she's going to be sitting in the deputy's chair. But has the LNP brought back the motion on the table today to fill the vacancy in the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee? No, they have not. So that just demonstrates what liars they actually are. It is disappointing, in my view, that these changes are being made today without addressing that issue. It was the sole reason given by the LNP for tabling the motion. And as far as I know, procedurally speaking, we cannot bring that back on tonight because the agenda of the special meeting has been set and it can't be altered. And that's my understanding of the rules. But perhaps they'll move it. Perhaps Councillor Landers, as a final act, as a backbench councillor, will stand up and the motion she took off the table regarding the vacancy on this important committee, she will put it back on the table. I don't think that's going to happen, but perhaps she will try. Perhaps she could try and do the right thing before she steps into the Speaker's chair. Finally, on the issue of delegations and the administrative arrangements, you would think, based on what the Lord Mayor has said here tonight, that a change to the structure of council is just something that happens in the passage of time. This LNP administration almost every year has come in here and made wholesale changes to the names of departments, the chairs of departments, the structure of departments, year after year after year after year. And the problem with the way in which this council keeps slashing and burning within the organisational structure of council is it has an adverse impact on officers. We can see that. They're running out the door faster than you can shout, oh my God, there goes a metro bus, and there's only one going around Brisbane, so you don't see it very often. There's huge turnover of staff. They're desperately unhappy with how this council is being run. Council officers will complain directly to you now, which when I started, they were so proud to work at council. They were so happy to work at council. They've been here a long time. They felt they were part of a family and a community. The butchering of this, in this term, by this LNP of council's operational arm has been astonishingly bad. The changes the Lord Mayor says here today, oh, they're only minor changes, there's not much to see here. Essentially, the council revolving door of administrative changes and governance changes is just continuing. You can't get anything new from this tired, old council administration. It is a revolving door, and the people who should be shown the way out are the LNP. Finally, the delegations. For as long as I've been an independent, which is about 13 years now, I have stood up and said I don't support delegations. I do not support it. This document here today, and I'll put it in simple terms, is akin to a coup by the executive arm of council. All of the delegations before us today empower the Establishment and Coordination Committee, a committee comprised solely of LNP councillors. Solely of LNP councillors. And to the CEO, the person who is appointed solely by the LNP Lord Mayor. You know, even that decision on the CEO's contract was delegated to the Lord Mayor. So the Lord Mayor the LNP used their massive majority to undertake these delegations to give themselves more power at the executive level of council and take away scrutiny, public scrutiny by elected representatives, the councillors in the chamber, and from the public, because the E&C decisions are made behind closed doors. And whilst we might get a list of the items considered, we don't see the detail of that coming through to council. So this is essentially a coup by the LNP. And I can't remember, what did I describe it as a few weeks ago? I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's like some Stalinist, fascist dictatorship. This is how it happens. This is how it happens. There is a democratic council. Slowly the powers of the democratic council are taken on by the executive. They are taken on by the executive. They control more and more power. They hoard more and more power. And eventually, any sense of democratic governance is gone. That is what is happening in Brisbane City Council, and it's been going on increasingly under this LNP administration. There are 88 new delegations in the hundreds of existing delegations that are being rolled over. Centralising power in the hands of the LNP executive is not the way to run the city. It shows this council is being run as a corporation and not as a community service organisation responsible to the people of Brisbane. I do not support what this LNP administration is doing, and I will not vote for it.
Thank you. Any further debate on items 5, 6 or 9? No further debate. Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just wanted to offer my thanks to Councillor Cassidy for his words about yourself, which made you blush. I've never seen you that red. No, I actually do appreciate those words, and I know every member of our team does. And so thank you, Councillor Cassidy, for that. I just did want to say as well, there's a thing called Goodwin's Law, which relates to online discussion threads. And Goodwin's Law is that the longer a thread goes on and the more heated it gets, the more likely someone will call someone else a fascist or a Nazi. And at that point, the discussion ceases to function because someone's gone there. And that's what we saw today. And it is...
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
Claimed to be misrepresented.
Noted.
And it is a shame, but it is not surprising because we've seen it happen before. It is a classic example of the councillor who cried wolf, who has been crying wolf for years and years and years, and none of those claims have ever been proven to be accurate or correct. And in fact, the credibility of those claims gets lesser and lesser with every year that goes on. It is a shame, and it is something that we're disappointed in, but sadly not surprised. Thank you, Mr Chair, again for your service, and welcome aboard to Councillor Toomey and Councillor Landers in your new roles. Thanks.
Thank you. Point of misrepresentation, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Mr Chairman. The Lord Mayor stated that I'd implied that there were... I'd referred to councillors in this place as Nazis. I did not do that in any way.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston.
I'm sorry, no, I'd like to finish. This is important. The Lord Mayor stood up in here and implied that I had referred to Nazis and Nazism as part of my debate.
Councillor Johnston,
I would like to make my point of order without interjection.
You're now
if that's
debating your
okay.
point of order.
No, I have not made my misrepresentation. I'm sorry, I'd like to make it, please.
Go on.
Thank you. The Lord Mayor stood up and in his speech implied that I had referred to councillors as Nazis or referred to Nazism. I did not do so. That is a false statement.
Point of order, Mr Chair. The terminology used was fascist dictatorship. Fascist dictatorship.
One last time. Councillors, we now have to move to the votes on items 5 and 9 together. All in favour of items 5 and 9, which is the administrative arrangements at attachment M and the delegation of powers at attachment Q, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. Division. Ring the bells. Division called by Councillor, the Deputy Mayor, and by Councillor Landers. Thanks, Billy. Close the bars. Clerks, read the result.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 18 in favour and 7 against.
Thank you. Declare that item carried. And councillors, as you return to your seats, we have one more item to vote on.
Well, you've got to step down because you're not the chair anymore.
I want to make sure of this one.
You have to step down. Your point of order. You are not the chairman. You have to step down.
No. Read the papers, Councillor Johnson.
You are not the chair.
It comes into effect on the 1st of August. Read the papers for a change. Okay. Read the papers for a change. Okay. We're now... Councillor Johnson, for bleeding sake. Do we want to vote on this item? Okay, item 6, which approves the appointment of the Chair of Council and Deputy Chair of Council as set out in attachment N. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Well, there are no further items. I declare the meeting closed.